Alright, Ronan MMA, welcome back to the channel. Now, a little over a week ago, USA Boxing set out some guidelines or changed their policy so that they will now allow, quote, trans women to compete against biological women. In other words, males competing against females. Okay, so I've been waiting to see if anybody would cover this topic, if anybody would talk about it at the very least in the MMA YouTube space, and I'm not going to fix that light shining in on me because that's Jesus telling me I'm doing a good thing, okay? But nobody has, right? I also thought maybe if I wait a week, maybe USA Boxing will realize how stupid they were. Maybe they'll have a change of heart. Maybe they'll see all the backlash that they're getting and reverse the decision. That didn't happen either, right? So I want to talk about it because one, I think it's wrong, and I think that we should speak up when we see something wrong, okay? Two, if this can happen in boxing, there is absolutely a world where similar policies could be implemented in MMA, okay? Maybe not as long as Dana White is alive and breathing will we see that in the UFC, but he won't be there forever, and the UFC is not all of MMA, right? Also, I just want to ask quickly, please, okay? I'm sure that the beautiful, wonderful YouTube overlords who absolutely have our best interests at heart will probably throttle this one a little bit. If you could, do me a favor, please and thank you. Like the video, subscribe, comment, whatever. Any of those buttons helps out, okay? Now, there are many misconceptions about what is and what isn't allowed or what would actually make you eligible, right? Lots of people basically think that me as a man or you as a man or anybody's a man could just be like, I'm a chick, I'm gonna go beat that chick up in boxing. Do you know what I mean? And while that's not the case, and I want to say immediately, if you haven't gathered by now, I absolutely don't agree with this decision of USA Boxing, even a little bit, and I'll go into detail as to why. And even with these very strict guidelines that they have actually laid out, it's still not enough, okay? The only policy that should ever be implemented when it comes to men fighting women is it shouldn't fucking happen, okay? Now, as I said, some new criteria. I'm going to read those out for you, and then I'll go over them in the order that I've read them out to you one by one, right? So number one is testosterone levels, which I will go into in a little bit more depth to the best of my ability and explain why I believe it's bullshit and why too much stock gets put into testosterone levels. Anyways, number two, they must have had those laid out testosterone levels for 3 years prior to competition. And number three, they must have undergone bottom surgery, right? Now, I want to say this, just to be fair and objective. As far as sports go, these are the most strict guidelines I have ever seen for any policies relating to this subject. The problem is that it's not fucking enough, okay? Now, as I said, I'll break them down in the order that I read them out to you. So we're going to start with testosterone levels, right? Firstly, the amount that they have laid out, which is just under 5 nanomoles per liter, may seem relatively low, especially compared to other bodies such as the Olympics, where in the Olympics, a trans woman, quote, could compete against women if their testosterone levels were below 10 nanomoles per liter, which is literally within the normal range for just a regular man, okay? Insane, right? So while below 5 nanomoles per liter may seem low, it's not low enough, right? The normal or average range, I'm going to put all of this shit up on screen for you, by the way. I'm not just going to say it out loud. I will show you as well. The normal or average range for an adult female is typically between 0.12 and 1.79 nanomoles per liter. By the way, that applies for elite level athletes too. That is not just some regular chick that's got a couple of kids at home chilling or whatever. That is for athlete women as well, okay? Which means, theoretically, if a male who has, quote, transitioned, right, just needs below 5 nanomoles per liter, that means USA Boxing is completely fine with a dude who has 2 to 4 times the amount of testosterone flowing through his veins to fight a woman, okay? Which is absolute fucking horseshit and does not even come close to leveling the playing field. Now, I don't think the playing field can be leveled, right? But if you were at least to make it a seem fair, why wouldn't you select levels that are within a normal woman's range, right? Are we going to allow the women that have to compete against these transes to take TRT to level the fucking playing field or what? Or would they receive a suspension for doping, right? Now, so the second point about the length of time that the individual would need to have said testosterone levels is completely fucking irrelevant, considering they're already much higher than the average woman. So basically, hey bud, just fucking make sure that your test levels are 2 to 4 times higher than your opponent's, and in 3 years you can go knock her out. Like, what are we fucking doing here, right? Now, I want to talk about why, in my opinion, I think way too much emphasis gets put on testosterone levels anyways, right? Obviously, testosterone is very important for muscle mass, muscle growth, maintaining muscles, right? All that shit. Here's the fucking problem though, dude. Muscle mass or size or whatever is not the only thing that gets factored into why men are so much better at sports than women, especially combat related sports, right? And with all these guidelines, they've essentially created a world where you can fully develop as a male athlete to boot, okay, up until you were an adult, and then just taper off and start your transition, right? So through all of your physically formative years, you get the benefit of being a male, all of the benefits that come with that physically, right? And then start your quote treatment, okay? This is such fucking horseshit, dude. There are so many quote medical conditions that would exclude you from competing in sports. This should be one of them, okay? It just fucking should. Now, firstly, in combat sports, something like cardio is very important, right? And men have larger lungs than women on average, not only in overall size, but also in lung capacity, 10 to 12% more volume, okay? That's a huge fucking deal. For cardio, that's a huge deal. For in between rounds, you can take deeper breaths, you can recover faster. Massive deal, okay? Second, males have a larger skeleton in size as well as in density, which makes a huge fucking difference when you're gonna hit somebody with your bones, dude. I understand there's padding on the gloves, but Jesus Christ, okay? Not to mention, men have considerably more fast twitch muscle fiber than women, which also makes a huge difference. This is probably part of the reason why so many men across MMA and boxing are capable of putting each other's lights out, and the women that are capable of doing that are very few and far between. You could probably count on one hand how many women can actually flatline other women in MMA or in boxing, okay? Why we see a woman like Clarissa Shields getting fucked up, almost knocked completely out cold by, if I'm not mistaken, an amateur in sparring. An amateur male in sparring almost knocked out, allegedly, the greatest women's boxer of our generation at the very least, right? Third, men on average have a higher red blood cell count, which can aid recovery. So basically, compared to women, men are just on a little bit of EPO. So much like the testosterone thing, are we going to allow these biological women, these females, to take EPO to level the playing field with their trans counterpart, or along with the TRT to level the playing field with their trans counterpart, or would they also receive a suspension for doping? Okay? Horseshit, dude. All of these fucking things that I've just laid out, by the way, and these are not the only advantages that men have over women. Those were just a few. All of these things that I've laid out are more... They're not just going to vanish, dude. They're more than just your testosterone levels. They're not just going to vanish. These are things that are developed when going through puberty as a male and shit, right? All of the inherent physical advantages that come with developing as a male, they're not just going to go away if you lower your testosterone levels a little bit, right? And the levels that they've laid out is just a little bit less than the low range for a man. So, especially not with that level, your lungs aren't going to shrink, your bones aren't just going to completely wither away, and your blood cells just won't up and vanish, as I said, at the very least at the levels that they have laid out, right? This is why, in my opinion, testosterone is almost a bit of a red herring. Now, it's not actually, because it is very important, obviously, but it's not the only thing that's important. There's much more than that, right? Now, lastly, I want to talk about the undergone bottom surgery, okay? So, basically, you had to have chopped off your cock, or have it inverted, flipped inside to make a pussy, okay? So basically, they want a bunch of unsullied fighting women, okay? I don't know if this is to avoid certain types of assaults in locker rooms or some shit. I don't really fucking get it. Just because you've gotten rid of the cock doesn't get rid of all of the advantages that I laid out earlier. All of these individuals' hormone levels will be kept up synthetically, dude. So it's not like they're dude, they don't need their testes. They're getting shots, they're taking pills, their shit is being kept up by a fucking doctor. I don't understand. Is it just to make sure like they've gone through an extreme length to quote compete as a woman, or what the fuck, dude? Just because you're a eunuch doesn't mean you're gonna get beat up by a chick, dude. Some eunuchs look like Lord Varys, and other eunuchs look like Grey Worm. All right, so they want, and keep in mind, we're talking about boxing here. The guys that would be competing against these women that have gotten their dick removed would probably look more like Grey Worm. We are literally talking about unsullied, okay? It doesn't address the actual fucking problem, which is that men should not be competing against women, point blank fucking period. Especially not in combat sports. Like, this is fucking retarded, dude. I see progressive types, like the progressive ogre of MMA YouTube, MMA Joey, saying things like, yeah, this is a non-issue, right? This is a fake issue. The actual amount of people that would end up competing in this manner is so insignificant, so minuscule, that it doesn't actually matter, pardon me. But that doesn't make it any better. We're displacing 50% of the population for like 1% of the population, right? And then when you factor in, of course, the sports thing, right, there's going to be even less of them. But it doesn't matter because it only takes one, dude. It only takes one. And that motherfucker will be champ within the next year. You don't need to have a whole fucking fleet of them coming in to destroy women's sports. You need one, right? We saw this with Leah Thomas, right? The guy who was a mediocre men's swimmer and went and broke all of the fucking records and shit, won a bunch of competitions in the women's division. We saw this with multiple cyclists who have won gold medals and shit like this, right? It really doesn't matter the sport. Men are just better at sports. Although, with combat, it's inherently more dangerous to women, right? Men will just continue to dominate. And keep in mind, dude, it's not totally uncommon that somebody dies in boxing. There have been over 2,000 deaths in boxing. It's rare, but it's not so rare that we can conceive of it happening, especially if you've got a man hitting a fucking chick, dude, right? More women, in my opinion, need to speak up on this matter and say something, okay? Because men have been, since this bullshit started, there are very few men, or at the very least, very few men that I know of, that would defend this shit. Maybe Luke Thomas, who knows, right? But we've been speaking out about it the whole fucking time. And guess what? It doesn't matter. Nobody cares about it. Because it's not us, right? People are just like, yeah, shut up. The women are fine. Dude, my wife's such a fucking savage. She thinks that there should be one, like, sacrificial lamb, basically. So one chick should have to go out there and fight a transes. We'll see her get fucking slaughtered, and then she thinks that might make more women speak out about it. I don't really want that to happen because, as I said earlier, it's not totally uncommon that somebody would die in a boxing ring. But what the fuck, dude? Y'all need to speak up also because they're not listening to us, okay? Anyways, dude, I just wanted to give my thoughts on this real quick because I do think it's completely and totally fucked up, and it's been driving me crazy since the story broke. As I said, was waiting to see if people were gonna, cover it or what have you. I was gonna kind of gauge the room, see what's going on, but fuck that, dude. I'm posting this video. If YouTube demonetizes it, I'm leaving it up. Anyways, dude, like and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. I will see you at the next video. Bye-bye.